Okay, today we're going to be discussing practical and relevant halachas about traveling before Shabbos. Person is using a plane, a train, and the like, and how much time do you need to leave as a buffer time? That's what we're going to be working on today. So we're going to start with the Piskei Teshuvos opening this simon over here. And he says that nowadays, in every single place, right, there are, where we typically travel, there's already food that's ready to be available. Even if a person approaches that location, reaches that location right before Shabbos, right? Number one, neighbors have extra food if the person where you're staying doesn't. Number two is you could buy it easily from supermarkets, and a lot of times when a person stays in a hotel and the like, so then it's fine over there. So really, this whole concern that we've been discussing over all of the days really doesn't apply necessarily. But you have to make sure that you get there with enough time to prepare for the food. And so that's a very important point to make nowadays. However, one should still refrain from traveling in a way that he's going to reach there, his destination, very close to Shabbos or Yom Tov. And that is, which applies very much so nowadays, you don't want to miss Shabbos. You don't want to be traveling while it's still Shabbos. That will be a major issue. And this certainly applies nowadays when traffic jams could easily happen, accidents could easily happen. And there have been many issues that have happened with this, stumbling blocks, Chilul Shabbos that has happened. And therefore, person needs to be responsible to reach his destination. He wants to say an hour or two before Shabbos. You also want to make sure that there is time to rest before Shabbos. It's an important point as well. You don't want to go into Shabbos when you're all tired from the exertion from the journey. Rather, we should all be entering into Shabbos with a settled mind and when we are rested. There were many great people, Gedolim, who were stringent not to travel after halachic midday on the eve of Shabbos, after Chatzos. Some were even stringent not to travel the entire Friday. General halach is not that way. Nevertheless, these are all concerns which we need to think about. Number one, reaching the destination an hour or two before Shabbos. Number two, that we're not time for the journey. It goes without saying that this is not referring to a person who's traveling 10 minutes, nor is the person traveling 20 minutes that we're referring to. We're talking about a trip that's going to take an hour, 2 hours, and the like. And therefore, one needs to be careful about these halachas that we just mentioned. In the footnotes, he quotes over here in footnote 3 the Shilos and Shuvas Mishnus Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Lieberman, in Chelik Hey and Siman Samach Gimel, who says that sometimes this could be a problem that now the taxi driver is going to be traveling already into Shabbos. We already discussed this yesterday, that others were already upset about this issue. Nevertheless, there's a brief PDF file that we have over here on this tshuva, the end of Siman Samach Gimel over here, right before this tshuva, which we learned another time already. Azhara Gedayla, Kfarnis Parsima Shaloilin Soya Meir Leir Ve'afilu Meshchina L'Shchuna L'Hagia L'Mchoiz Chafetzo Be'erev Shabbos Kodesh Samuch L'Knisas HaShabbos. There was already a public warning about this, a great warning that was publicized not to travel from one city to another, even from a neighbor to another, to reach your destination near the time of Shabbos. Ki goyim chos v'shalom chilul Shabbos l'nahag. The nahag person would cause a desecration of Shabbos for the cab driver. You have to keep in mind the cab driver I know what everyone's thinking nowadays. Who takes a taxi? It's the same thing. Uber, Lyft. If the driver is Jewish, which many times happens in Israel, then you need to be careful to leave ample time that that driver could get back to his house by Shabbos. Ki goyim chos v'shalom chilul Shabbos l'nahag. V'yachoylo l'koro takala berechov o b'kvish v'yasakiv v'atzma derech. Furthermore, the driver, something can happen on the way. He could get damaged. The car could get in an accident. There could be another accident which will slow down the whole process over here. That could delay the journey. You're going to rush it. If you're traveling last minute, guess what? Mistakes are typically made when a person is in a rush. Number one, you could damage yourself. Number two, you could damage others. Like I just told someone who's very excited, my nephew, that he's now going to start driving. He's got his permit and everything. A car is a means to an end. Let's get the place Aleph to Beis. But it's also a weapon of mass destruction. And you got to be careful behind the wheel. Which means someone who's wise will foresee what will happen due to his current actions and be careful. So you have to be careful, leave time for the driver. Comes along the continuation of footnote 2 over here. Furthermore, someone who is driving near the time of Shabbos, goyrim l'chilul Hashem, shehamonam v'ameh haaretz royim shoymrei Torah mitzvos hameachrim yatiru la'atzmim yoser. Regular people are going to see, oh, look at this rabbi, look at this Talmud Chochem. He's traveling so close to Shabbos. They're not going to realize it, and before then you know it, they're going to be traveling on Shabbos itself, so you got to be careful with that. Footnote 4 is going on. You want to arrive at your destination around an hour or two before Shabbos starts. Some say, however long your journey is to get to your location, that is the amount of time that you should get to your destination before Shabbos. For example, if a person's journey is 2 hours, get to your destination 2 hours before Shabbos. Let's talk about planes. And this ain't gonna be the last time we're talking about planes either.
But that thing you just says it's kind of extreme. Like, let's say you're going to Baltimore and you can get there like 4 or 5 hours before Shabbos.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it says over here. It says Gedali Yisrael Bati Dinim, that they said that nowadays this is a nice idea to do.
A lot. If someone's traveling far distances, it's a lot.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we've been learning about the last 4 sessions. So up top, he didn't quote this. He said you get an hour or two before. However, based on everything that we've been learning about, this makes logical sense. Traffic jams, car braking. The longer the journey is, the more likely that there's going to be an accident or accidents. And that slows things down. Coupled with the New York rush hour, the hustle and bustle, this ain't no joke. Let's talk about planes. This isn't going to be the last time we're talking about planes, don't worry. You're taking a plane, guess what? You gotta leave time to get to your destination before Shabbos. Because what happens? Delays. The runway. Nowadays, there's more people traveling on planes than there ever has been. And tomorrow there'll be even more. There are tons of travelers on planes. You could research the stats, how many people go through JFK, you'd be shocked. It's crowded. And guess what? Planes don't go any faster than they used to. They go the same speed as they had in the last 40 or 50 years, not 1 mile per hour faster. You look into why not. And guess what? The delays are longer. So if anything, in 40 years, we went backwards. Because it's slower now because there's more people traveling and there's only limited ground on the runway.
Security.
More security also, coupled with the security. So we went backwards in times in 40 years. Planes, you gotta be careful. Get there a lot of time before Shabbos. Ki kishakoireya takolo benasiyos elu motzu shesmameus adli himasha chanasiya loikechesman rav. A lot of times these delays they take time, and therefore you got to leave the time for those delays. The Aruch HaShulchan says regarding traveling on a train on Erev Shabbos, be careful to come there when it's still day, and many times the Satan tries to prosecute and cause stumbling blocks to get in your way and mess ups.
Who's the one who said about planes? Is that just his footnote?
This is his, and we're going to be learning about it more. This is just him.
That's him.
This is just his idea. But we're gonna be seeing about that more. Don't worry. We're gonna be learning about that.
Okay.
This is the preview. Preview. When I say we're gonna be seeing about more, I mean in the next 22 minutes. Okay. Now, the next line over here is going on the idea of you want to go into Shabbos, and this is something that we already alluded to. This is perhaps one of my favorite parts of the Simon. You want to go into Shabbos when you're already rested and you're not tired from a lot of exertion beforehand. You have to know yourself, know your body. Look over here. He says it's based on Das Torah and a Shiloh Teshuvas Binyan Siyan. Let's cut straight to the chase. At the Binyan Siyan over here, the Shilohs and Chuvas, I apologize for the bad print. Shilohs and Chuvas Binyan Siyan, Simen Nun Ches, towards the end over here. And he says over here at the end, you want to get to your destination when it's still day. You could prepare for Shabbos, preferably. Goes through this whole topic that we're discussing. And he says, look, you got to be careful that you're not going to be tired from your traveling that you did. That's why, by the way, David, walking too much is a problem. Because when you walk too much, you're going to get tired. However, he says, if you're traveling, not by walking, a wagon, a car, so then fine. We don't say that it's going to be an issue to travel more than 12 miles on the eve of Shabbos. There's no exaction. But what he's acknowledging over here is you want to make sure that you're not tired. And we know that traveling tires a person out, even if he's not driving. I've tried all ways. I've tried as a passenger. I've tried as a driver. I've tried as a staying in a plane, in a train, staying lane cruise control, full self-driving car. I've tried it all. Guess what? Common denominator, you get tired either way. When you take a long trip, it's tiring. Kind of, you're resting from a period which was supposed to be restful. It's not. It's tiring. Let's continue over here on this point for a minute. Guess what? That's why the same applies over here. You got to make sure that you're not tired. You got to make sure. That's the Binyan Siyan. I thought he was going to say it here.
Passenger, quote unquote driver.
No, because it's tiring either way. That's why I listed the 6 examples.
Interesting.
It's tiring either way. You got to know yourself in situation.
You, you gotta get a chauffeur.
Driving a
You
car.
gotta get a chauffeur where you can sleep and you can sleep in the back seat. You won't be tired.
If you could sleep and do that, fine. Then you probably won't be tired. If you were sleeping, right?
That's the Iksa.
But if you weren't sleeping, right?
Right. You gotta get it.
But if you weren't sleeping, then you're gonna be tired. So
That's you gotta
you've got to know your journey and your situation. Where was it over here? I thought he was gonna talk about it over here.
What about being tired?
No, about exercising. Bummer. Did we already learn about that? I think we learned about that then
we're
already.
gonna do that before davening, but not I don't think on air.
That this is where it comes from, that you shouldn't exercise too much if it's gonna tire you out on the eve of Shabbos. You've got to be careful not to get too much physical exertion involved, because that could already now take away from your Shabbos. He doesn't say that here. I thought he was gonna say that. All right, he must say that somewhere else. We already saw that. No, we saw that somewhere else. Good idea, I think.
But he definitely talks about over here about the body breaking and
The body breaking. No, I know that. That's what he says over here, but I thought he spoke about it somewhere else over there. All right, this is definitely something to keep in mind. Now, put on number 6. It says some Gedolim were careful not to travel at all after halachic midday. The Sefer Ohaleya says that the Ksav Sofer wouldn't travel from outside of the city on the eve of Shabbos. Told us Chavetz Chaim also had this custom, many other Gedolim. However, yeah. Okay, this next line in footnote 7 is just saying the side point over here of this we already quoted outside. This is the Shulchan HaTahar, who says that when we talk about Oneg Shabbos, that means being in an environment that's not specifically referring to eating and drinking. Oneg Shabbos einenu davka achila v'shtila ela leiv sameach. It's talking about that your heart is happy and that you're in an environment that's comfortable for you. That's an important point. Talking about if you're in a dangerous area. Thought that was a good point. Anyways, this is the let's get Chuvas over here. And this is the idea. Gotta be careful when you travel for these issues that we're discussing at hand. I really thought that it was here that we saw that whole thing. Really thought that it was over here that we saw that whole thing. Okay. We're gonna start the chuvas from Rav Harfinus. I'm not sure what that exercising thing. But the idea comes from that footnote at least, not to get tired going to Shabbos if you know yourself. Okay, nowadays let's talk about the prohibition of going on Erev Shabbos. Let's say you call them at the telephone and you inform them that you're coming, so then you could travel according to the reasoning of preparing the food. Then you could definitely travel the entire day. And similarly, if you're going to take prepared food with you. However, to be stringent, he says, really, in theory, the telephone should definitely work. If there are on the way stores that sell food also on Shabbos, like we already learned before, supermarket, so then that's fine because you can buy the food there. If you take food with you, you could travel on the way there the entire day. But you have to reach your destination before Shabbos. Also, if you're going to a hotel, that's fine. You have to be careful if you're going to a hotel. It takes time to check in, bring everything up to your room also. That's something to keep in mind. So seemingly you could get there right when Shabbos starts if there's food there. However, the Sefer Shulchan HaTahar says that no, you have to leave an hour or two as a buffer time. So where does that amount of time come from? An hour or two? Maybe it's better to be safe than sorry. Or maybe it's based on a Bach. Tangentially, he says, perhaps nowadays, even if you're going to a place that doesn't have food, you don't need as much time to prepare all the food. Because nowadays, due to the technological advancements and the types of ovens and stoves that we have, you're able to make and bake the food much quicker, and therefore you wouldn't need as much time. Good point, right?
That's what you were talking about.
Right, but this is saying even if there's no supermarket, even if there's no food for you that's ready, even if there's no neighbors there, still don't worry about the whole food reason because you could cook it relatively quick, as opposed to back then it would take longer. Be better equipment and everything. What about traveling in on a car or on a train? He says also you should reach your destination an hour or two before Shabbos. What's the Bach we already learned? Also a bus, same exact idea. What's the reason for this leniency that if you're traveling on on a wagon, on a bus, on a car, you could be more lenient. The Bach himself says that you shouldn't protest people who do it. Better that they violate the halacha accidentally than on purpose, which seems like it's better not to. So what's going on over here exactly? Shulchan Aruch Harav says that the truth of the matter is that even the Bach himself didn't permit this prohibition. He just says it's permissible to travel more than 12 miles, 3 parseos. Nevertheless, he doesn't want you going more than that. Bach just says don't protest people who do it, which shows that it's not so simple to do it, which is a very interesting point. However, from the simple explanation of the Bach, you could be completely lenient because he concludes by saying, be careful just not to travel. Yizar shel yisa ad Eisa erev. Just be careful not to travel until Shabbos will start, or close to when Shabbos starts. Many times, person could stumble and desecrate Shabbos. In other words, the explanation of this Bach is don't travel too close to Shabbos. And the Pri Megadim explains when you go on your feet, maybe you're going to be tired from your journey and it's going to take more time. AK, you're going to be tired, you won't continue your travels, and then you're going to delay Shabbos and you're not going to make it in time for Shabbos. Unlike if you're traveling by a wagon or a car, etc. What about traveling by bus? Got to be careful with the bus. Traffic, same exact idea. You're traveling slowly, or it's bumper to bumper. Sometimes you might still be on the highway when it's still traffic. That's going to be a problem. Where are you going to park your car in the middle of the highway? What are you going to do? You're just going to pull off the highway and just stay in the middle of nowhere? That's the shalom. You got to be careful. You're not going to drive the vehicle after Shabbos starts.
Wait,
Problems. The Araisa if you're going to drive a car. Fire. Havara could be in a Araisa. Very well so. Fire, combustion, at least for gas vehicles, ICE, internal combustion engine.
or an RV.
Cylinders. And when you're going to stop it, the brakes. The brakes, it's like you're extinguishing a fire. Chava, kivui, extinguishing. That's going to be a problem. That's one of the 39 halachas.
Reading an RV.
Okay, if you have an RV, but most people don't travel on those. What about in Israel? They made an enactment. Do not go anywhere on Erev Shabbos unless you leave yourself 2 times the amount of time your journey is, buffer time from when you get to your destination. So if your trip will take 1 hour, get to your destination 2 hours before Shabbos. For Sadiqin, great people on Erev Shabbos. Because after halachic midday, they didn't travel like we learned. But there were many great people and righteous people who were lenient, like the general halacha is. How much more do we have here? Okay, just that little bit. Perfect timing. Absolutely perfect timing. We're going to wrap it up with this. If Shabbos came in when you were still traveling, you're not allowed to continue traveling. Even if you're not going to have yayin for kiddush, you don't have anything to make kiddush with wine, grape juice. You don't have any challah for the Suda. It doesn't matter. In 1 minute, when you're driving a car, you could be violating thousands of prohibitions from the Torah. After Shkia, once sunset comes in, you got to stop. Seika daraisa. It's a doubt from the Torah, you got to stop. Seika daraisa l'chama. You have to be stringent on a suffix daraisa. A doubt from the Torah. If you would perform halach at that time, and we had a base of mikdash, you would have to bring in Ashem Talui because you're not sure if you sinned or not. You got to be careful about this over here. Even if you're in the middle of a highway or a bridge, you got to stop your car at the moment that sunset comes and abandon it. Unless it's a dangerous situation, in which case get that you get the car out of there, put it to a safe place, and then leave it. Look, you've got to foresee this. Sunset doesn't come out of nowhere. If it's very urgent for you to reach your house, you're allowed to travel to your house by using a driver who is not Jewish, as long as it's before when 3 stars come out. Because we hold Loigozru shvus bebein hashmasers kishehu l'sorech mitzvah shasa decha gadol. We didn't decree on a shvus, on a problem of a rabbinic prohibition, aka telling someone not Jewish to do something for you, bein hashmasers, in between sunset and when 3 stars come out, in between shkia and tzeitzul chavim, when it's needed for a mitzvah or in a pressing situation. We'll end with this tshuva, the grand finale of this sif. Planes, as opposed to one little sentence in a footnote. What's the story with planes? Are you allowed to take it on Erev Shabbos? Connecting flights. Rav Harfness doesn't like it. He says it's fitting to refrain from doing so. He says, look, that's technically from the letter of the law, that's Mikra Din. However, it's very common nowadays to fly. Why? For what's that echo? It's very common nowadays to fly for different reasons. And you gotta be careful over here. A lot of times flights last minute, they have a lot of delays. You don't know about. And then when you're going to have that delay, you're going to reach your destination on Shabbos itself or near the time of Shabbos in a way that Chas v'shalom, you're going to need to violate Shabbos. Desecrate it. This is based on what the Bach says. Be careful not to travel when it's too close to Shabbos because many times you're going to stumble. The tears the Canaan. Therefore, person should not be taking a plane unless he has enough time and a lot of time to reach his destination before Shabbos begins. In a way that even if he had a delay of 2 or 3 hours, he would reach his destination. So you want to leave now a buffer of 2-3 hours plus the amount of time it's going to take you to get from the airport to your destination. Because most delays are settled within 2-3 hours on planes. If it's a press time and you are compelled, you have to get back to your house by using a plane that's prepared to reach your destination on Erev Shabbos near the time of Shabbos, you should already discuss with the staff of the plane that if the trip is going to be delayed, the plane, that they should allow you to remain on the plane with your bags. Now, I think the rules don't allow such a thing, but in places where they would, that's what you should do and just remain on the plane the whole Shabbos. And then he concludes the tshuva by saying it's obvious that you need to calculate the amount of time it will also take you to get from the airport to your destination. That also takes time, especially coupled with the fact that the good old-fashioned traffic could come bite you. So you've got to calculate, you got a cheshbon in the traffic as well. Like the Aruch HaShulchan writes regarding traveling on a train. You have to calculate how much time will it take you to get from the train to your destination. You need to take a wagon then. You take a train to get on your horse and buggy, your wagon, your car. Unless the airport's right next to a hotel, then you don't need to worry about it. If you're able to call in advance and everything. Usually there should be enough time by the time you land, you actually get to the hotel to just settle it. Or you just stay in the lobby like the story that we quoted in the past. So anyways, this is the idea about the planes. This stuff isn't a joke. Person's got to leave time. We're saying 2-3 hours of delay time for the plane, plus the amount of time it takes to get from the airport to your destination where you're going. I think that's very reasonable, Psan. No? Would you argue?
So again, it has to be from
2-3 hour buffer for the plane delays, plus to get to your destination, plus the amount of time it takes you to get from your airport to your destination.
just a double that, no? Or that
No, the double that was a stringency
That
that
was
they
a
were saying in
stringency.
Israel. Make didn't you just need to reach your destination an hour or two
at least
before Shabbos.
3 hours beforehand.
An hour or two. That's a general offer. You have
But
to
they-
know
and then
the
the
trip,
travel
but
time-
the plane is 2-3 hours plus from the airport to your destination. Regular
Right.
traveling is just get there an hour or two before Shabbos. Yeah. You know, I just want to remind ourselves of we saw the stipend yesterday. He said not to take a trip more than around 4 hours before Shabbos, not to travel more than 4 hours. So you have to know. You know, the Baltimore trip that we take, that's the longest trip it's really the longest I ever drove anywhere in my life. From New York to Baltimore, 210 miles. It really takes us 3 hours, 15 minutes a night when there's no traffic. And when you travel at the right time, we leave after 10 in the morning, after the Chabura. There's really no traffic in between 10 and you go straight. It's really just makes it under 4 hours. But once you start leaving later in the day and the traffic picks up,
Bills. That
it-
Delaware
it-
water gap is a killer.
everywhere.
There's-
It's everywhere. The belt,
One-
it's everywhere.
One piece of traffic, you get nailed for a couple of hours.
It's everywhere. It's the belt.
An
It's
accident.
the
I've done
the I-95 after Delaware also. It's everywhere. It could take easily the longest it ever took us. I remember when we were one time it took us 5.5 hours. Sunday, 5.5 hours. So these are real concerns that we're talking about. These are real issues. It should also be pointed out that when we're talking about planes, we're talking about most people that they travel on commercial flight. There definitely are people who own private jets. When you own private jets, everything is much quicker. You don't have security. I mean, you pay into it. That's why it costs so much money because you save a tremendous amount of time. So you pay into it and you literally show up and you know there's not going to be a delay.
Right.
You know, the pilot knows before, everyone knows before if there's a delay, you're going to get a phone call. So once you're on the flight, you don't need to worry about it as much.
Done.
Yeah, what we're talking about. So this is talking about for commercial flights. I just want to point it out, even though it's not relevant to most people, but you know, for some people it is, and it should be spoken out. This idea.
I get it.
Helicopters also there aren't as many delays, you know, before, and usually people don't travel so far in helicopters. But, you know, this is a reasonable request. You know, you got to be careful. Get there ample time before, and make sure it's not stressful. Also, you don't want to go into the Shabbos being stressed.
That's why I have a private plane.
That's why you have a private plane? Okay. Let me know. You let me know when I could use it, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime you want.
Anytime? Okay, good to know. I have nowhere to travel. All right.
Very
Everyone
good.
have a wonderful day.
Kaya.
Mitzvah Shem Torah, we mamshech.
Man.
That's